Alright, the next step is once you got the static timing set, all the spark plugs are back in, spark plug wires are reattached, the coil is reattached, is to set the idle timing. So next step is going to be turning over the car. So make sure that you have all the connections reset and reattached, all the rocker covers back on, all the vacuum lines are reattached. The only vacuum line I'm leaving off is the vacuum line here attached at the back of the distributor, and I'm doing that because Jeff said in his notes when he returned the distributor that the idle timing should be set 14 to 16 degrees before top dead center at idle without the vacuum. So I'm going to leave that not attached because there shouldn't be any vacuum at idle anyway, and then I'm going to set the timing. So what I've done is I've attached my timing light. Here I have, there's all kinds of different timing lights, but this is an Innova Pro series timing light, and how you attach it is it comes with this pickup that you put around the number 1 plug, and there's an arrow here that points towards the plug, so you have to make sure it's attached the right way. There's a pickup for dwell here that you attach to the negative side of the coil. Then there's a black pickup which I've attached to chassis ground, and a red which I've attached to, I have this block here, this distribution block that I've attached that will distribute battery power. And right now the only thing really hooked up to it is my amp for the stereo, but that gets a direct feed off of the positive cable there, and that has a 4-gauge wire going direct to this distribution block. So this is as close as I'm going to get to battery power, direct hooking this positive directly up to the battery, which the instructions tell me to do, but the cords won't reach back to the battery in the back. So I'm going to hook it up there, and what you see here is once you got all the connections correctly, you're supposed to do this with the ignition off, and it'll read the battery voltage. So not all versions of timing lights will read battery voltage, but this one does. So you know you hooked it up correctly. You got 12.6 volts here at my battery, and I'm ready to do my timing. Okay, the manual, actually the instructions for my timing light here give a tell you to adjust or check the dwell angle prior to checking the timing. So what I'm going to do is check that. I am imagining that I'm not going to need to set it or reset the dwell angle. Basically the dwell angle is the amount of time, and it's represented in degrees of engine rotation that the points are closed. So that was set by advanced distributors when I sent my distributor off to get reconditioned. So I'm imagining mine's going to be set perfectly per the book here. What it says is that there's these settings here, and it lists distributor dwell angle down here, and it's 35 degrees plus or minus 2 degrees. So what you do here on this timing light, which can measure dwell, is you get it to the setting, the dwell setting, so it's the arrows pointing at dwell here, and you can change your number of cylinders here with the up and down arrows. So 6-cylinder, of course, and now as long as you have it hooked up correctly, so you have to have the dwell lead connected per my instructions earlier that I showed. And now once I turn the car over, it'll read the dwell angle here, and it'll show up on the right here. So I'll go ahead and turn the car over. And you can see the dwell angle is spot on. So 35 degrees plus minus 2, it's exactly 35. And so Jeff at Advanced Distributors obviously set the dwell angle on the point gap perfectly for our application, and therefore I don't have to touch it. I'm not going to go through a video of how to adjust the dwell if it is off. I believe that John Twist has a video for that, and I'll link to that in the description. Okay, the next procedure is just to set the idle timing. So the recommendation from Advanced Distributors is 14 to 16 degrees of advance at idle without vac. So idle speed has to be correct, obviously, in order to do this procedure. Idle speed per the manual is 680 RPM for a manual transmission vehicle. Mine is actually set about 750, and you'll see that on the timing light. It actually will show the RPM and the amount of and the timing. So so you'll see mine's at 750. I like it a little bit higher just because I think the engine runs a little smoother. But 680 is the manual spec. So I'm going to set my timing off of that idle speed, and I don't know, I think it's close enough. There'll be probably just the tiniest a bit of mechanical advance due to the higher rotation speed and those weights inside the distributor that get flung out to the outside and cause mechanical advance. But we're talking 50 to 70 RPM above idle per the book, so I'm thinking that that's not going to be a big deal there. So what we do here is the engine has to be up to our operating temperature, which it is right now. I've already warmed it up, and the next step is you want to have to prepare yourself to adjust the timing. Make sure that the nut here on the distributor is loosened just a touch, so you can twist the distributor in its housing. So you want to grab the distributor and twist the whole thing. Just don't grab onto the cap, or don't grab onto just the vacuum advanced module. Try to grab onto the whole distributor, and that way you don't end up breaking anything or bending anything. And you want to turn it inside the housing, and if you get this nut loose enough down here, it will twist inside of its housing. So what we're going to do here is turn the vehicle on. The engine will be at idle. Make sure that you warmed it up so that there's no choke. Choke should be all the way in. And then I'm going to show you how to advance or retard the timing by twisting the distributor. And there's two ways you can do it. My crank pulley has timing marks for 15 degree. There's a red mark with an arrow where 15 degrees is, and also there is the white mark at 0. So my timing light allows me to advance the timing with these buttons, so I can set it at 15 degrees of advance, and that white mark should line up with the 0 top dead center marking on the front of the engine cover. Or we can set this at 0. If I scroll this down to 0 and I line up my red mark with the arrow, then that's another way to do it. So either if your timing light allows you to set the advance, you can just use the top dead center markings on the pulley and the timing cover, or the timing chain cover, or you can mark your pulley. If you mark your pulley with 15 degrees at the 15 degree mark, then you can also use that marking. And if you have a timing light that doesn't allow you to manually adjust the advance. So I'm going to turn the car on now, and then I'll go through the procedures. Hopefully you'll be able to hear me over the engine while it's running. Alright, now that the car is kind of smoothed out, you can see here that it'll show the idle speed on the right, and then you can set the advance here on the left. So I'm going to leave it at 0 and look at those red markings on my pulley down there, and I could see that the marking is lined up. The 15 degree mark is an additional 5 degrees of advance, so it's running about 20 degrees before top dead center right now. So what I'm going to do is see if I can show you that. Not sure if that'll come out. There you go. You can see that red mark right there. And I can see it visually, it's right on the 5 degrees before. So that's with this set at 0. So I can manually adjust it to 15. And now what I'm looking at down there is the white stock mark. And that's at 5 degrees before. So what I know now is my car's running about 20 degrees before top dead center. So in order to adjust that, I'm going to come over here to the distributor, grab onto the distributor, and twist it counterclockwise. So I just twisted it just a touch counterclockwise, and now that mark is perfectly lined up, and it won't focus obviously but I got this set at 15. And then the mark is lined up just at
top dead center mark is lined up perfectly with the zero marking on the pulley.
That is it. So after that, the next step is to just tighten this up. So I'll tighten up that nut there on the distributor. I'll reattach the vacuum line, and then what I'll do is I'll recheck the timing just to make sure that when I tightened up the distributor it didn't move at all, and the timing is still set at 15 degrees before top dead center at idle.